Let's get more reaction to the breaking news as the British Boxing Board of Control have cancelled all events in line with government advice until the beginning of April. Let's go live to Adam Smith. Adam, first of all, thanks for joining us. Your reaction to these events?
Well, I think it was inevitable, and it's the right decision. Ultimately, we're down at the Repton Boxing Club, the famous Repton, where the Golden Contract light heavyweight semi-finalists were ready for the draw and their press conference, and there's some obviously downbeat fighters around us, but they understand, as we all do, that there are much bigger things here than boxing and sport, obviously. So, yeah, Robert Smith and the board have decided that events will be postponed and put to one side until at least into April, where there'll be another look at the situation. Obviously, the big thing is for boxing events, whether they are in front of public or behind closed doors, is the doctors, and especially for TV shows. TV shows have to have 3 doctors or 2 doctors and an anaesthetist there. And obviously the government and everybody realise that the medical profession need to be elsewhere and away from the boxing events and other events and in hospitals and helping out the people that really need it at this time. So obviously there's a flat field down here at Repton, but everybody understands that. Fighters have been training very hard for their big night on Friday in the Golden Contract, but their time will come again, and they realise they're all families and they have a lot of loved ones themselves, of course, and they realise that that's the most important thing. So yes, it's deflating news down here, but it's the right decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we look a bit further ahead to Anthony Joshua's fight that's scheduled for June, clearly that's in doubt as well, because everything is up in the air. How does that affect him and his training, and could potentially a different venue be found for that?
Well, boxing, as you know, is a very different sport to any others. It's extremely unpredictable at the best of times. You never quite know sort of what's going to happen and when it's going to happen, which is part of the sort of appeal of the sport in many ways. And of course, fighters are training 8 to 10 to 12 weeks for their big night. So yeah, these things are obviously very difficult for the boxers to take to. And as far as Anthony Joshua goes, he'll only gently be in training for what would have been the June the 20th night at Tottenham Hotspur. Now, we don't know about that yet. I've spoken to Eddie a few minutes ago. I'm sure he'll make an announcement on behalf of Matchroom in the coming hours ahead. But we expect, obviously, that certain events in the next few weeks will be put back and will be rescheduled. As far as we go into sort of May, where we're meant to have the Dillian Whyte and Alexander Povetkin match up, as well as the Alexander Usyk and Derek Chisora. We had the press conference for that last week. Then into June with AJ and Pulev. They're huge heavyweight fights ahead, but of course nobody knows where we're going to be by that point. So at the moment we can't say, and I guess they'll just have to tick over in light training. But the most important thing is their health and their family's health, and that must come above any event.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, just finally, the Olympics go ahead as scheduled. At least that's what we keep hearing from the IOC and from Japan. Although the Olympic qualifying event at the Copper Box was postponed just 3 days into it. That was yesterday. So how difficult for those fighters? Clearly a tricky time, but how do they remain focused when essentially they are in limbo?
Well, again, it's a tricky time, but fighters are pretty used to having things rescheduled or being told, certainly professionals especially, being told when they're on bills, when they're off bills. So, you've got to keep yourself ticking over at the best of times anyway. But it is disappointing, obviously, for those fighters. We know Galal Yafal and Peter McGrail both qualified for the Olympics, but 3 days in and, a tournament scheduled for 11 days, a qualifying tournament. Very, very difficult. But along with everybody else, amateur and professional, we've got to go with the guidelines, the government guidelines, and that is that events are being postponed, are being put back, and it's back to your loved ones, and it's health is wealth, and that's the only important thing, and that's the message from everybody down here in the boxing world.
Absolutely. Okay, Adam, thanks for joining us. Take care of yourself.